All right. We're going to start again and continue. We were away for 2 weekends, and today is, what day is it now? July 23, 2016. We'll continue on Daniel 5. We did only a couple of verses last time, and just did some backgrounds and ended up with the genealogy of the kings of Babylon. All right. Okay, so we'll go back to that. We'll go back to that and start off with this quotation from Youth Instructor. You know, I decided not to put the what now, because we should know if it's DA or PP or PK. And I don't have to put the whole thing up there anymore. You know, we should. You know, YI is obviously Youth Instructors, right? Okay. All right. Admitted to a share in kingly authority at 15 years of age. This is very profound, I found. Ellen White wrote back in 1898 that Belshazzar shared in kingly authority. Who did he share his kingly authority with when he was 15 years old? With his father, right? The thing about it is, before the cuneiforms were widely understood and was able to be translated, most of the scholars, they knew that the last king of, well, they believed and they wrote that the last king that lost Babylon to the Medo-Persians was Nabonidus. And they said there's nowhere is there this thing that Belshazzar lost Babylon to the Medo-Persians. It's Nabonidus, because that is what is written in the history, in secular history, and before they figured it out in the cuneiforms, and the cuneiforms were not widely translated until early 1900s. So Ellen White wrote here in 1898 that Belshazzar shared in kingly authority at age 15 years of age. And what happened was that his father had pretty much abdicated the throne, although he was still the king. He went to Arabia for 10 years. He went into the middle of the desert and started up his own cult. Yeah, so that was Nabonidus. So here, Belshazzar, at 15 years old, he became the king. But he was considered co-regent. So he was co-regent. That's why Ellen White wrote that he shared in kingly authority, starting at 15 years of age. Belshazzar gloried in his power and lifted up his heart against the God of heaven. He despised the one who is above all rulers, the general of all the armies of heaven. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to the thousands of his lords, and he drank wine before the 1,000. Now his dad was in the desert for like 10 years. So he was probably about 25 years old here when he did this, you know. He made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000. On this occasion there was music and dancing and wine drinking. The profane orgies of royal mirth were attended by men of genius and education. Decorated women with their enchantments were among the revelers. All right? Okay. All right. So I'll just go over this a little bit. In Isaiah 14:22, this was obviously the time of Isaiah was around the time of, was way before. It was probably 100 years before the time of Daniel. Yeah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and all that. Isaiah was predicting who would lose Babylon. For I will raise up against them, said the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon what? The name and remnant and son and nephew, says the Lord. Right? We did this last time. It was kind of interesting. Because if you have to know the genealogy of the kings of Babylon to be able to know who is the name, who is the remnant, who is the son, and who is the nephew. Right? All right, here's Nebuchadnezzar. He is actually the son of Nabopolassar, the first king, historically the first king of Babylon. But Nebuchadnezzar has 3 children from this wife, from the Egyptian wife. He has another wife who is a Median. He has 4 children from that wife, but from this wife, which is Nitakert, called Nitocris, has 4 children. Amel Marduk, which is called Evil, I'm not sure, Evil Merodach. Right? That's the son. He became the king, and he had 2 sisters, Nitakert, which is Nitocris, and Kashaya. All right? Evil Merodach is mentioned in the Bible as being the king that released Jehoiachin from prison and gave Jehoiachin rations and Jehoiachin's family rations of food. Right? So Evil Merodach is mentioned in the Bible. All right? Evil Merodach was then killed, and then Neriglissar, which is the son-in-law of Nebuchadnezzar, right? Because Neriglissar married the daughter of Nebuchadnezzar, right there. And his name is Nergal-Sharezer. You know why is that important? Because he is one of the princes that went and attacked Jerusalem at the time of Zedekiah and took out the eyes of Zedekiah, the last king. So this is one of the princes of Nebuchadnezzar who took out the eye of Zedekiah. Neriglissar died, and his son only lasted about 9 months. Now this son was killed. All right, let me see. He was beaten to death. And then Nabonidus became king. Nabonidus is the son-in-law of Nebuchadnezzar, having married Nitocris. Right? So that's the kingdom went from here. Nebuchadnezzar, Evil Merodach, Neriglissar, Labosarkad, Nabonidus, and then Belshazzar. Right. So that's how it went. Okay? And who's Nitocris? She's the queen mother. Remember the queen mother that came in and says, "Oh, okay, there is somebody who can interpret dreams, and it's Daniel." Right? So this is the mother of Nabonidus. I mean the wife of Nabonidus, which is the mother of Belshazzar. Right? So the queen mother.
Is she the one who made again? The water,
right.
diverted the water.
Right. Nitocris was also famous because she was the one that actually made the Euphrates become very, had many curves to it to block the people from attacking it very easily. So they have to, instead of just following the river, she made the river go winding. And to be able to do that, she made a lake. She dug up a big lake, diverted the water into the lake, and so the Euphrates would dry. And during that time, she built a bridge that crossed over the east side to the west side, or across the bridge in Babylon. So that's called the Nitocris Bridge. And they actually found it when they dug up Babylon. Right? So Nitocris is very famous. And Nabonidus and Belshazzar. So who's the name? Who's the remnant? Who's the son and the nephew? Okay, the easy way, we won't go through this again, but it's quite easy to remember because the remnant is the one that was in Arabia for 10 years and was not in Babylon when Babylon was conquered, right? It was Nabonidus. Nabonidus is the remnant, right? So if you know who's the remnant and who's the name is actually Neriglissar. The remnant is Nabonidus. The son is Labo-Soarkad, and the nephew is Belshazzar, right? So here's the name, the remnant, the son, and the nephew. These are the 4 kings, the last 4 kings of Babylon, right? Okay, I mentioned this last time. When you read the NIV, this is what the NIV writes. Isaiah 14:22 in the NIV. I will rise up against them, declares the Lord Almighty. I will wipe out Babylon's name and survivors, her offsprings and descendants, declares the Lord. Now, how are you going to know anything? How are you going to, it completely dilutes down. You're not going to know anything.
Makes it wrong.
Yeah, makes it wrong. All right. Okay. So now, this is, when you look at this structure, it reminds you of the last 4 kings of the Judah, right? So who is the son? Who is the remnant? Who is the grandson and the what? The nephew. The name. Okay, the name. The remnant is Shalom, because Shalom was never taken to Babylon. He actually was taken to Egypt, right? Shalom is the remnant. Zedekiah is the name. Jehoiakim is the son, because he also is the son. But all these guys are the son of Josiah. So here's the name, and the remnant, the name, the son, and the nephew, because Jehoiachin is the nephew of Zedekiah, right? So you see that the pattern is similar, but not exactly the same. And the reason why this is, in my opinion, is important is because we realize that Babylon, which is essentially the United States, when it falls at the same time that spiritual Judah falls, right? At the Sunday law, right? Yeah. So the last 4 kings of Babylon has the same characteristics as the last 4 kings of spiritual Judah, right? Spiritual Judah, and both of their probation basically close at the Sunday law, right? Okay, so we go to Daniel 5, verse 1 and 2. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. All right? Okay, looking at the waymarks and the lines here, how do we put this? The king's feast, he made a great feast. Right? We know this is at, we kind of established that it was at 1989, right? Okay, there is a decree. Commanded, which is a decree, right? They drink wine. Here you go, they drink the wine of Babylon. And 1,000, here's the 1,000, he called 1,000. And 1,000 is the same like 100, it's also the same as like 10. So they call like the 10 virgins being called, these are the virgins being called right here, right? And there's the gold and silver vessels are being used to drink the wine, and there's 4 groups: king, princess, wives, and concubines, because the 4 groups represent the last generation, right? The last generation. They're going to be the ones that is going to close his history, right? The last generation. And what are they going to use? they're going to use golden and silver vessels. Right. And what does it mean when they are drinking the wine of Babylon out of the gold and silver vessels that they took out of the temple in Jerusalem? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's sacrilegious profanation. But they're drinking the wine of the fury they're filling up the cup, right? They're closing their probation, right? Yeah, they're closing their probation. Her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath to remember her iniquity. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her double. Right? There's the doubling. This doubling happens at the Sunday law. In the cup which he hath filled, right? They're drinking out of the cup of Babylon. So when they're drinking the wine of Babylon, they're starting already at 9/11, and they're starting to close their own door, right? Okay. Belshazzar was acquainted with the dealings of God with Nebuchadnezzar, but this knowledge had no effect upon his own course. He blindly clung to the worship of idols and gave himself up to sensual indulgence. It was not long before reverses came. He had been defeated in battle by Cyrus, and 2 years had been besieged in the city of Babylon. Within that seemingly impregnable fortress, with its massive walls and gates of brass, protected by a river Euphrates and supplied with provisions for a 20-year siege, the voluptuous monarch felt secure and passed his time in mirth and revelry. Right. They were ready to.
He's the ultimate prepper.
Yeah. Wow.
He thinks he can't be conquered.
And the thing about it is that he knew what Daniel had warned Nebuchadnezzar of. He already knew. The warning that was given to Nebuchadnezzar was he knew what it was. So what was given to Nebuchadnezzar is also given to him. All right? That's very significant because Nebuchadnezzar, what happened to Nebuchadnezzar? He repented. Mm-hmm. And the problem with Belshazzar is he knew the same message was given, but he did not repent. All right? So one, he's the foolish and his grandfather is the wise. All right. Okay. Verse 3-4. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem. And the king and his princes, his wives and concubines, these 4 groups of people, they drank out of the golden vessels that were taken from the house of God. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold, silver, brass, iron, wood, and stone. How many different kinds?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
6 different kinds of materials, right? And these gods are made out of these 6 different kinds of materials right there. And while they were worshiping, they were drinking wine out of the golden vessels. All right. You know this has a lot of meaning to it, right? Okay. When were the golden vessels taken out? Right. Were they taken out all at one time? No, they were taken out multiple times during the time of Jehoiakim, Jehoiachin, and Zedekiah, right? So verse 7, verse 10, and 18. All these vessels, Nebuchadnezzar carried out the vessels of the house of the Lord to Babylon and put them in his temple. And then you jump to verse 10, and when the year expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of the Lord, and made Zedekiah, his brother, king of Judah and Jerusalem. Right? So this is when he took away the vessels at the time of Jehoiakim. This is the vessels that he took out of the time of Jehoiachin, and all the vessels. And then eventually all the vessels were taken out of the house, great and small, treasures of the house. All were taken to Babylon. Right? They were taken on different times. Okay.
That's the way of preserving those vessels too, because you have to go back to it.
Yeah, in a way, I'm not sure what that means prophetically, you know. They lose their truth a little at a time, or I'm not sure what that means.
Or the abomination.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
slowly, just like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 2520, it gets worse and worse. Yeah, because you look at the 2520, the first, the second, and the third, and the fourth. The fourth is the worst one. As compared, it just gets worse and worse.
Same as.
Right.
It gets progressive too.
Yeah, it's progressive.
So the falseness, the desire of the Adventists to be like the other churches, religions, they are actually allowing the golden vessels of truth to be removed from the Adventists.
That's right.
Progressive.
Mhm. And we see that in the
Getting
history.
worse.
We see the history of it.
Getting worse.
So the thing about it is we realize that now Belshazzar is talking about Adventisms, the foolish Levites, right? Yeah. It's in a way it's also talking about America. But on a different level, it's actually talking about the foolish Levites, which is Adventism. So the foolish Levite, which is Belshazzar, is worshiping the 6 gods of Babylon. In contrast to Daniel, who's worshiping the one true God. What is it saying? That Adventism now is worshiping the gods of Babylon, right? As compared to Daniel, who's worshiping the one God. Right? Is that true or not?
That's true.
It is true, right? Yeah. Tough for people to swallow that. Yeah. Okay, so what are the 6 gods of Babylon? All right. Do line upon line here, just look it up. Right from the Bible. Now I have in 1 Chronicles 29, verse 2 to 3. Now this is David. Now I have prepared with all my might. I have prepared with all my might. For the house of my God, the gold for the things to be made out of gold, the silver for the things made out of silver, brass for things out of brass, iron for things of iron, wood for things of wood, stones, right? All these stones. Moreover, because I have set my affection to the house of my God, I have of my own proper good of gold and silver, which I have given to the house of my God over and above all that I have prepared for the holy house. What does that mean? All these, the same things. This house of David prepared all these materials for his son Solomon to make the temple. So God's temple is also made out of those same 6 materials.
Yeah.
So what's the difference? What is? Yeah, well, that's true. But look at it, it's his might. Right. So this temple is made by man's hand
Yeah.
with all these 6 different materials, right? And are people worshiping it now?
Yeah.
Or are they worshiping the God that's supposed to be in it? What are they worshiping? The building, which is made out of these 6 different materials, which is the works of man, right? So they are worshiping the works of man. Even God's own church on earth, the structure is made out of the same things, but because it is made out of with man's hand, you're not supposed to worship the structure, right? Yeah. Okay. And what did Solomon say? But Solomon built him a house. Oh, this is what Stephen. Remember when before Stephen was stoned, he was rehearsing the history of the Israelites, and he says, "You know what happened? Solomon built a temple, right? And what did Solomon do? But Solomon built him a house. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands," right? But isn't the Solomon's temple made with hands? Right. But Jesus does what? So what he's saying, Jesus does not dwell in Solomon's temple anymore. Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool, as saith the prophet. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest? Hath not mine hand made all these things? And what happened to him after he said this?
They were mad.
They killed him. So why was he killed?
Because
Because
he
they
was
are-
talking against
He is profaning the temple, right? He's profaning the temple, according to them. According to them, he said, hey, you're talking bad about the ark. Because he said, no, Jesus is not residing in that temple. That temple is made by the hands of man. It's made with gold, silver, and all that. It doesn't matter. But if Jesus is not there, what's the use of worshiping there? Right? And because of that, he was stoned. Now, he was actually, as said the prophet. So I had to go look it up. Where does it say in the Bible that Stephen was quoting? 1 Kings 8:27, right? This is what Solomon said. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have built it? Even this beautiful house that I have built it cannot contain God. Right? What did Isaiah say? Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye built unto me? And where is the place of my rest? Where is it now? It's in you. Yeah, right? Because he now only dwells in temples that is made with his own hand.
It's you.
Right? Right? So who is it?
We are the temple.
We, us. Because we are made in his image. Right? That's why we are the temple. All right. What was Paul being accused of, and they wanted to kill Paul for? Sedition and profanation. For we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition. Sedition. Among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. They want to make their own sect, and they want to rebel against the Romans. Right? That's sedition. Okay? Who also have gone about to profane the temple. So Paul was accused of profaning the temple, just like Stephen was, right? What about Jesus? Right? What did the Jews want to kill Jesus for? Now the chief priests and elders and all the court and all the council sought false witness against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. Yea, though many false witnesses came, yet found they none. Because all of them were contradicting each other. They cannot give a true story. A consistent, good false witness.
That's good to know.
At the last came two false witnesses and said, this fellow said, and he said, this fellow, which is Jesus, he says, okay, you know what? Jesus said this. I am able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days. Did Jesus actually say this?
Yeah, he did.
Actually, when you have to read the Bible, Jesus did not say this. What Jesus said was in John 2, verse 19. And you might want to read, just put that in your margin. John 2, verse 19. This is when Jesus just finished cleaning the temple. Cleansing the temple. And he says, the zeal of thine house has eaten me. He says, take these things and make not my father's house a house of merchandise. Right? And then answered the Jews and said unto him, what sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things? Jesus answered and said to them, destroy this temple. He didn't say destroy the temple of God. He says, destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Right?
To them, that's the temple of God.
Yeah, but that's not what Jesus meant, right?
Yeah.
Because in verse 21, but he spoke of the temple of his body, right?
His body.
All right. So he said, destroy this temple, which is this temple. He's talking about this temple, him, right? It's the body.
He's gonna die.
Yeah, it's no longer the temple built with the hands of man.
Made of hands, yeah.
Right. Right.
But he didn't even say, even if they misinterpreted
That's right.
it, he didn't say, I will destroy this temple. He just said, destroy this
This
temple.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It said I didn't destroy the temple.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. He says he didn't say I am able to.
Yeah, he didn't say he was able to.
Yeah. And the high priest arose and said unto him, and answerest thou nothing? What is which these witnesses against thee? But Jesus held his peace. And the high priest answered and said unto him, I adjure thee by the living God that thou tell us whether thou be the Christ, the Son of God. Tell us where you are the Christ. Christ meaning Messiah. That you are the Messiah that you claim to be and the Son of God. Jesus said to him, thou hast said. Meaning, what does it mean when a Jew says, thou hast said? You said it. You said it. That means it's true, right? Nevertheless, I say unto you, hereafter shall ye see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power, coming in the clouds of heaven. Then the high priest rent his clothes, saying, he has spoken blasphemy. So what is blasphemy? What's the definition of blasphemy according to the Jews? Right here. That this man, that we're looking at, which is, we perceive as he's a human, he's calling himself a Messiah, and he is calling himself the Son of God. All right. He's calling him the Son of God. Because if he calls himself the Son of God, what does that mean? According to the Jews, that he is equal with the Father. Now, equal with the Father in what? In his divinity, right? So the Jews understood that. If you're calling yourself the Son of God, then you are calling yourself to be equal in divinity to the Father. And to them, that's blasphemy. That should be blasphemy to us too, if a man says that, right? Right. What further have we need of? We are witnesses. Behold, now you have heard his blasphemy. That's blasphemy. Okay? So what did they want to kill him for? Profanation and blasphemy. Right there. It's right from the Bible. Right? Not only sedition, but also profanation. All right. Psalms 115:48. Their idols are silver and gold, the work of man's hands. They have mouths, but they speak not. Eyes have they, but they see not. They have ears, but they hear not. Noses they have, but they smell not. They have hands, but they handle not. Feet they have they, but they walk not. Neither speak they through their throat. They that have made them are like unto them. So is everyone that trusted in them. So what is it saying here? Do not trust in the symbol of human works. Right? Do not trust in what? The temple structure. Right? Because this is what, isn't this? The gods or the idols of silver and gold that is the works of man's hands. That's the structural the building structure, right?
And also the wine.
Well, yeah. Well, this is what they're worshiping while drinking wine. So they are worshiping this. They are actually worshiping the temple structure. It becomes an idol to them.
And so how about too their doctrines that are now perverted, because it says they that make them are like unto them.
That's right, yeah.
And so is everyone that trusts in them.
So you cannot trust them because they're also drinking the wine of Babylon, right? That's what Ochok was saying. They're drinking the wine, yeah? And we know the wine that they're drinking, spiritual formation, you name it. You go down the list, exegesis, hermeneutics, and all that. All right. Okay, so here. The King's Feast, we did this, so we add one more, is the 6 Babylonian gods. They're worshiping the 6 Babylonian gods at 9/11. Okay, so that's where we put it. Okay, we continue them. We continue verse 5 and 6. In the same hour came forth, the same hour, right? Came forth a finger of a man's hand and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall. So the hand wrote on the plaster wall, which is over against the candlestick, right? Of the king's palace, in the king's palace. And the king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed. His thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote once against another. All of this is very prophetically significant, right? Yeah. Okay, let's just do this. You know what? I was very curious because when you read more and more and you realize what happened to the wise men, they looked at the writing and what happened to them. It said they could not read it. And some people say, well, because it was written in a different language. And some people some interpret that as meaning they could read it, but they don't understand what it means. I'm not sure which one it is because it doesn't really say. But in any case, they don't know what it means. Whether they can't read the writing, or they just don't know the meaning of the writing. But
since the king knows, does his countenance change? When he looked at that, became afraid.
Yeah, but I think when he sees something like that, it's happened such at a time when it really is a warning for him. He knows it's some sort of warning for him. It's a hand moving by itself out there.
Although he didn't understand it.
Yeah, it's a writing. So, I just did, this is just for my own enjoyment, but I decided to write Mene Mene Tekel Upharsin in cuneiform. Yeah, it's very easy actually, because you have a dictionary now. So that's Mene Tekel Upharsin. Yeah. It's not difficult now to write.
You have the internet.
You got the internet. So easy.
This is so impressive.
It's fun, It's fun to do this, right? Many Tekel Upharsin. All right. But this, when the king saw that,
Looks like a chair.
his countenance changed, his thoughts troubled him, his joints were loose, and his knees smote one against another. Okay. This hour is significant, and we'll put it on a timeline. But what does over against the candlestick? What does over against mean? Because it's different than against the knees smote one against another. This is a different word. Over against is one word. It means, now remember that Daniel 5, Daniel 3, I think from Daniel 3, it's all written in Chaldean, which is Aramaic, right? So this is actually written in Aramaic. In Aramaic, it's kobali, kobali. Over against means kobali, kobali. It means in front of. So the writing was in front of the candlestick. That is significant. That is very significant. All right. There you go. Yeah, you're ahead of us. There you go. We'll go there. Yeah. That's the thing. Because it was over against means in front of. So this handwriting was written on the plaster of the wall. In front of the candlestick. Okay? All right. Remember that. Okay. And now we'll go with countenance. The first mention of a countenance being changed is right here in the time of Cain. But unto Cain and to his offering he had no respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. Why was his countenance fell? Countenance means face, or his disposition, or his overall attitude. His attitude changed, right? Why is What did his countenance fell? Because he had a false offering, right? Yeah, he had a false offering. Belshazzar, did Belshazzar have a false worship at that time? Yeah, his countenance changed. And another one, a king that had a countenance change, or visage change. Then was Nebuchadnezzar full of fury. And this is Daniel 3. This is the time that they were worshiping the golden image. And the form of his visage was changed against Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Therefore he spake and commanded. So when a king's attitude change, what does it do? He makes commandments. He makes decrees and changes laws, right? Yeah. So we know that at this time, when you can put that the king's countenance changed, there's going to be laws that are going to be changed. All right? That's what it means. And thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus. Oh, this is Isaiah prophesying about Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him. I will loose the loins. What is loosing the loins of the kings? Now, this is Isaiah prophesying as what's going to happen to Belshazzar when Cyrus comes. Because Cyrus comes and attacks. And who's the king at that time? Belshazzar. And Belshazzar's loins are going to be loose. What does it mean that his loins are loose?
Afraid.
Yeah, afraid. I was just thinking, how is the loins loosed? It's got to be the pelvis, right? The pelvis becomes, wobbly, and you can't stand. So you can't stand. So what do you have to do to stand up then? You have to gird your loins. Remember, gird your loins. You tighten your belt so that you can stand up, right? And to open before him the two-leaf gates, and the gates shall not shut. I will go before thee and make the crooked places straight. Remember, the crooked places is the river. The river becomes straight, right? The river that Nito Chris made crooked, right? Because what happened? Cyrus, he dried it up. He diverted it into the lake. So now they can go straight right into the city. And I will break the gates of brass and bars of iron. Oh, brass and iron is also broken. And I will give thee the treasures of darkness, hidden riches of secrets, and that thou mayest know that I, the Lord, which call thee by thy name, which is Cyrus, am the God of Israel. Right? So the crooked Euphrates was straightened. All right. Okay, I took this because it made it easy. It was difficult for me to find one that had big writing on it, but this one has it. All right, Isaiah 20:21. A grievous vision is declared unto me. The treacherous dealer dealeth treacherously, and the spoiler spoileth. Okay? Go up, O Elam, besiege. O Media, all the sighing thereof have I made to cease. Okay, it says, Elam and Media is going to besiege you. Where is Elam and where is Media compared to Babylon? All right. Babylon is right here. Right? There you go. Babylon right there. This is Elam, which is the capital is Shushan. Remember Shushan, the palace in Elam? Yeah, that's Persia, the Esther, right? That's Persia. And this is Media. So Media, Persia, right? That's Media and Persia. And where is it in reference to Babylon? It's east. Right? It's east. So it's telling you that Elam and Media is going to come in from the east. Therefore are my loins filled with pain, and pangs have taken hold upon me as the pangs of a woman that travaileth. Oh, there's going to be kings that coming from the east, and it's going to cause you pain like the pains of labor, right? And my heart panted, fearfulness affrighted me. The night of my pleasure hath he turned into fear unto me. The night of drunkenness of Belshazzar was turned into fear because the kings of the east are coming, right? And causing me pain as the pain of a woman in travail, right? So does that happen at the end of time? Revelation 16:12. And the sixth king poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water therefore was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. Right? In the end time, the kings of the east is going to come in when the rivers of the Euphrates are dried up. What does that mean? Psalms 48. This is famous. Jeff always goes to Psalms 48. And the kings were frightened, right? And they saw it and they marveled. They were troubled and hasted away. Fear took a hold of them there, and pain as a woman in travaileth breaketh the ships of Tarshish with an east wind. All right. So the prediction that is being written down there, and Daniel will eventually interpret, has something to do with Babylon being conquered by Medo-Persia, which is from the east. And this, for us, means that we're going to have to give a prediction that the east wind is going to come, right? Yeah. Nahum 2. What about the knees smiting together? She is empty and void and waste, and her heart melteth, and the knees smite together. And much pain is on all loins, and the face of them all gather blackness. Behold, I am against thee, said the Lord of hosts, and I burn her chariots in the smoke, and the sword shall devour the young lions. I will cut off thy prey from the earth, and the voice of thy messengers shall no more be heard. Oh, this is about being afraid here. Having pain in his loins, unable to stand, being made empty, void, and wasted, being afraid, right?
When you're having pain, your knees will.
Right. So why are your knees weak? Right here. Sigh therefore, thou son of man, with the breaking of thy loins, and with bitterness sigh before their eyes. And it shall be when they say unto thee, wherefore sighest thou? And thou shalt answer, for the tidings, before it cometh. Because of the tidings. What's the tidings? The news. The news. The tidings is going to make your knees weak, right? And all the knees shall be weak as water. Behold, it cometh, and it shall be brought to pass. Your knees are going to be weak because of the tidings. And the tidings is, when you read Ezekiel 21 and you read Nahum, is about the judgment that is going to come to you. It's all about your judgment. So this is about the judgment of Babylon, the judgment of Nineveh. This is the judgment of Nineveh, which is Assyria, and this is about the judgment of Babylon. Daniel 11:44 and 45. You remember the tidings? But the tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Who is him? Trouble who? The king of the north. So what kind of tidings? The news. There's going to be a news that comes out of the east. What's the news that comes out of the east? The kings of the east are coming, right?
Yeah.
The east wind is coming. Right. Okay, what about the tidings of the north? What's the tidings of the north?
The law of God.
Who's going to come from the north? Where is the throne of God? Yeah. Who's the true king of the north? Jesus. So Islam is going to attack and Jesus is going to come. And those tidings is going to be predicted, and those tidings will trouble the king of the north, right? And therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy, and utterly to make away many. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him, because that is his judgment, right? Tidings of the true king of the north and tidings of the kings of the east. It's going to make his knees shake. All right, what about Plaister? The writing is on the plaster. And it shall be on the day when ye shall pass over Jordan. So when you get over to Jordan, when you pass over it, and you're in the promised land, you're in Canaan, unto the land which the Lord thy God hath given thee, that thou shalt set up great stones. You are going to set up stones and plaster them with plaster. Okay? You have to plaster, you make an altar and you plaster it with plaster. And thou shalt write upon them all the words of this law. I see. So what happens is you use this plaster so that you can write on it the words of the law when thou art passed over, that thou mayest go into the land which the Lord hath given thee, a land that floweth with milk and honey, as the Lord God of thy fathers hath promised thee. Therefore it shall be when ye be gone over Jordan, that ye shall set up these stones, which I commanded you this day in Mount Ebal, and thou shalt plaster them with plaster. So you plaster the altar so that you can write on it. Right. And then you can remember of what God has done for you. Okay? But the altar is made out of stones that are plastered. So what is plaster? Plaster is mortar, right? Uncle Pete works in cement, so he knows what mortar is. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, they found in the plan a land of Shinar. What did they find? They built a Tower of Babel. And how was the Tower of Babel made? Is it made with stones? No. It's made out of brick. Because the brick is substitute for stone. And then
cement, actually.
Yeah.
For cement.
Right. And then to join the bricks, what did they use? They use slime for mortar. Right. Slime is, I guess pitch or slime. And they said, go to let us build us a city and a tower. What did they build? A city and a tower. What is a tower? A church. And this is a state. A city and a tower is church and state. That's a symbol of a church and state. And they built it with brick for stone instead of stones, right? And they covered it with mortar. So this is like the this was one of the representation of the stone that they have right across Jordan. They made up one like this. But anyway, if it's covered with plaster, this is what it might have looked like. All right. Okay. Ezekiel 13. I put this whole thing here because it's very interesting. And mine hand shall be upon the prophets that see vanity, and that divine lies. They shall not be in the assembly of my people, neither shall they be written in the writing of the house of Israel. Neither shall they enter into the land of Israel, and ye shall know that I am the Lord God. Because they have seduced my people, saying, peace, and there was no peace. So they are preaching peace and safety. And one built up a wall, and lo, others daubed it with untempered mortar. Say unto them which daub it with untempered mortar, that it shall fall. So your wall is going to fall even if you daub it with untempered mortar. Because untempered mortar is not strong. It has too much water, right? Yeah. The combination of water and what slime is not correct.
Well, before they says slime is made out of mud.
Yeah, mud.
Grass.
Yeah.
That's how they use it.
There shall be an overflowing shower, and yea, all great hailstone shall fall, and a stormy wind shall rend it. Lo, when the wall is fallen, shall it not be said unto you, where is the daubing wherewith ye have daubed it? Therefore thus saith the Lord God, I even rend it with a stormy wind in my fury, and there shall be an overflowing shower in my anger, and great hailstones in my fury to consume it. So this peace, you are preaching peace and safety at a time when the wall is going to fall, and you're trying to keep it up, to keep the wall from falling by using untempered mortar. But it's going to fall anyway, right? So I will break down the wall that you have daubed with untempered mortar, and bring it down to the ground, so that the foundation thereof shall be discovered. And it shall fall, and ye shall be consumed in the midst thereof, and ye shall know that I am the Lord. Thus will I accomplish my wrath upon the wall, and upon them that have daubed it with untempered mortar, and will say unto you, the wall is no more, neither they that daubed it. To wit, the prophets of Israel, which prophesy concerning Jerusalem, and which see the visions of peace for her, and there is no peace, says the Lord God. Right? So what does it mean to build a structure with untempered mortar?
Foundation.
Yeah. It's weak. And it's weak because you are preaching peace and safety. And you're trying to hold up a crumbling church wall structure with a peace and safety message. And it's going to fall. Because Jesus says that there is not going to be one stone on top of another, right? Within one generation when the tree buds in spring. Didn't he say that? In Luke 21, right? So when you build up a church with untempered mortar is when you're preaching a peace and safety message.
And also,
No strong foundation.
First selected messages, she talks about when a new religion and they move everything, it's just, it will be washed away. It will not stand.
It'll be washed away. You're right. Okay, let me just change the word here. So daub is to overlay, plaster, or smut, to just cover it, to cover the And untempered is tofal, which is plaster, slime, frivolity, or foolish things. It's foolish things, untempered mortar. So there's no truth to that. The message, the peace and safety message is frivolity and foolishness. There's no message in it, right?
And they use brick instead of stones.
Yeah, and they use brick instead of using stone. Okay, all right. So there's the
Brick is made out of hands, really, but stone is
Right.
God.
right. That's the thing. Brick is made by hands, man's hand.
Yeah, because stone is considered as a rock.
Right.
So it's if you put a brick on that one, it's like you're worshiping a handmade
Mm-hmm.
And
God.
all those years they were in Egypt with Pharaoh,
That's right. Exactly. That's
there's an object lesson.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Now, who's the hand? What is the hand that Ellen White says is a bloodless hand that wrote on the wall, right?
Bloodless.
Right. A watcher who was unrecognized, but whose power was a power of condemnation, looked on the scene of profanation. See, they're profaning God's temple by using the gold and silver cups and drinking the wine, using that, right? Because it's taken from the temple of God, right? So it's a scene of profanation. Soon the unseen and invited guest made his presence felt. So this watcher is the uninvited guest. At the moment when the sacrilegious revelry was at its height, a bloodless hand came forth and wrote words of doom on the wall of the banqueting hall, right? The scene of profanation. A bloodless hand by a watcher. So who's the watcher? I'm trying to figure out, she never really says it, but she says it, and you have to figure out who this watcher is. Is it an angel? Who is the watcher?
Be Jesus as it's capitalized.
All right. Yeah, I thought it could have been Jesus too. Is it Jesus? Now look at this.
But
In this Sanhedrin assembled to plan the death of Jesus, the death of Christ, the witness was present who heard the boastful words of Nebuchadnezzar. There's the witness who was also present there at the time that Jesus was going to be. So wait a minute, it can't be Jesus. Right? Who witnessed the idolatrous feast of Belshazzar, right? The witness is the watcher, is the uninvited guest, right? Who was present when Christ in Nazareth announced himself to be the anointed one. So who is this? Who is this watcher? You gotta rethink. This witness was now impressing the rulers with the sinfulness of the work they were doing. Now there you go. That's it. It's the Holy Spirit. Who can only impress you with the sinfulness of what you're doing?
the Holy Spirit.
It's the Holy Spirit.
It's the Holy Spirit only that can convict you.
Yeah. Under the impression of the Holy Spirit, the Pharisees could not banish from their minds the conviction that they were fighting against God. And in true significance, the Old Testament scriptures regarding Christ flashed before their minds. I thought it was Christ's hand,
Holy Spirit of Christ.
but it is Christ. It is Christ. There you go. Now it's not. It's not confusing.
So it's
Mind
bloodless.
of Christ.
It's bloodless because it's a spirit.
It's correct.
Yeah, it's
So
the Spirit of
it's
Christ.
It's not a being.
It's not a being. Right? It's not confusing to us when you have the Father and the Son understanding.
Yeah, when we have a Father and Son understanding, but for those people who believe in the Trinity, they have a different interpretation on this one.
Yeah. I didn't know whose hand that was before too. I thought it. Anyway. Yeah. So this what? Anyway. Okay. Trying to summarize a little. Add a little bit to the timeline. So this is the hour. So what does the hour mean? The hour starts at midnight and goes to the midnight cry. This is the hour. The hour is always the binding time. The binding off time. This is the binding time for the priests. This is the hour also, which is the binding time for the Levites. This is the hour also, which is the binding time for the Nethinims, right? So that's the hour. And the writing. The writing on the wall is a prediction, right? It's a prediction of doom. It's a prediction of the judgment, right? It's a prediction. So that prediction is given at midnight, right? Because it's written there. The thing about it is, was Daniel there? No, he wasn't.
Wasn't.
Daniel wasn't there. Daniel was called later, after the prediction was, the handwriting was written, right? Right. The writing, the plastered wall. The plastered wall is a brick wall in the palace. It's essentially you can call it a stone. Countenance was changed, so he made a decree because he changed his mind. He was troubled, and the reason why he was troubled because of the kings of the east are going to come and conquer him, right? And his joint and knees are loosed, and they smote together, which is fear. Got a hold of him. Okay. Well, how are you doing? All right. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's see. I'll see where I can finish this up in maybe a few more. All right. The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing. There you go. They could not read the writing. Does this mean they cannot read or they cannot understand it? Anyway. Nor make known to the king the interpretation. If they cannot read it, then they cannot give the interpretation. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. Right. Astonished.
Astonished.
Yeah, astonished. All right. So the king cried aloud. What is cried aloud? The loud cry. Okay, we know this is the loud cry. Oh, it's got to be the midnight cry now. So this is the midnight cry. To bring in the astrologers, they're calling in the supposed wise men. So supposed wise men, right? But they cannot interpret it. Because of that, they were given inducements of scarlet, chain of gold about his neck, and they shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Why would they be the third ruler in the kingdom? Why, what about Joseph? Did I put it here? What about Joseph? When he was able to give the interpretation of the dreams to Pharaoh, what was he given? Fine linen, like scarlet, gold chain about his neck, gold chain. And he rode in the second chariot. He got the second command in Egypt. Now Daniel, he got third command. Why did he get third command? Historically, just from the historical standpoint. Why was he third command? Obviously, because there's a 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Who's the 1 and 2?
The king and the co-regent.
Nabonidus and Belshazzar, because they were co-regents.
Right.
Remember? They were co-regents. If there's the father king and the son king who are co-regents, he has to be number 3 then, right? That's why he's the third in. That's why he's the third in command, right? But what does that mean prophetically? If he's the third command, he's giving the third angel's message, right? At this time, because the third angel's message will come in the midnight cry. That's the first time it comes in, right? Because then it's empowered at the Sunday law. The first time the third angel's message comes in is at the midnight cry. Because that's when the first Sunday law is going to start, right? And if you worship the image of the beast, you're going to have to receive you're going to receive the mark of the beast, right? But if you don't, then you can receive the seal of God. So the first Sunday law is going to come in at the midnight cry. So we realize that he becomes the third ruler of the king because he's going to be giving the third angel's message right there. And historically, he can only be the third ruler of the king because there's already a first and a second, right? Okay. All right, let's finish this then. All right, we got the hour. We got the writing, which is the prediction, on a plastered wall, which is like a stone. And the countenance, change, trouble, joint, knee. So there's the loud cry given at midnight cry. To gather the wise men, and the countenance is changed, and there's a troubling again. There's a troubling here, there's a troubling here, but this is a prediction of what's going to happen here. And the Astonite. Who was Astonite? The lords were Astonite. It wasn't Daniel that was Astonite, right? Okay. All right. I think we'll stop right here. We'll continue next week with going on from here about the Queen Mother coming in. And the Queen Mother here, if you look at the genealogy, is Nitocris, which is the wife of, which is his mother, which Belshazzar's mother is the one that was the wise queen. Obviously, she was the wise queen because she knew about Daniel. And told them to call Daniel because Daniel will be able to give the interpretation.
She did all of these things, the birthing of the river, building of bread.
Yeah, right. So we'll continue this next week. And there's still so much in Daniel 5. It's incredible. Now we know that the six gods of Babylon represents the works of man, which is the temple, and they worship the temple. But when I looked at that, I said, there's got to be more than that. There is more than that, and then you can find it because when you compare it in Revelation, the gods of in Revelation 9, you see it's pretty much the same. And then we'll get to that next week, all right? Okay, and that is the more sure word of prophecy.
Wasn't she also the queen that built a